Hello, good afternoon, everyone. And before we continue, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land where Griffith University stands today. This is the project team. As you can see, this project was across JCU and QUT. Just a little about the project background. So our project started in 2021 in relation to the Reef 2050 long-term sustainability plan. And this is the result of a 3-year project, which was one of the projects within the IMR, the Integrated Monitoring and Reporting Suite of projects. Ours is called Activity 9 and focuses on the governance within the human sphere of IMR, along with the biological and integration spheres. Despite there were some initial general difficulties around the meanings and uses of the understandings of the term governance, but the Reef 2050 plan indicates that governance systems should be inclusive, coherent, and adaptive. Where are we with that? So what is the status of governance systems health in relation to the Reef 2050 plan? Well, first of all, by governance health, systems health, we mean how well all the policies, plans, and programs and all other activities work together to achieve desired outcomes for the reef. In fact, a lack of governance monitoring was recognized as a critical gap that was hindering progress toward a more resilient and protected reef. So our goal with this project was to resolve this gap, or try to, through the development of a benchmark to monitor the health of governance systems supporting the Reef 2050 plan. How does a healthy governance system look like? For example, improved transparency, prioritize traditional owner decision-making, individual and collective decision-making is supported. This has been our timeline. So we started by identifying and collaborating with research participants to build the framework itself. We identified the components of the framework and started populating it with the attributes. And then we worked on developing a way to monitor, to measure and assess the attributes. Finally, we gathered feedback through interviews and workshops on the evidence collected and through an appreciative inquiry approach. We are in the closing stage now, where we would like to make recommendations around a long-term institutionalization of the framework. Our methodology is based on multiple lines of evidence, which comprises literature reviews, having conversations with traditional owners and reef stakeholders through interviews, workshops, conversations, and developing also a reef governance map showing the governance status of the reef. So this is the framework that we developed. As you can see, is made of 4 big clusters. I'm not going to go into the detail of each of them, but the first one is structural coherence, and then connectivity and capacity, knowledge, and operational governance. And each of these clusters is comprised of 5 attributes. We did the assessment of the attributes through an appreciative inquiry approach. So for each attribute, we looked at the literature, both internationally and reef-related, and conducted interviews and focus groups and asked attendees and interviewers to evaluate the attribute. We also, for each attribute, looked at case studies in the GBR space as an example for each attribute. And then we needed a way to visually represent our results and what we found. So after some thought, we quite liked, actually Karen Vella came up with this idea of the happy buckets. I don't know if any of you is familiar with the idea. But just as a concept to represent visually the assessment of the attributes. So a full bucket means that the attribute is realized in the reef, and the up arrows indicate an improving trend, and the black filling in the dots is the confidence in the grading. Just to give you an example, we can talk about the first attribute in the first cluster, which is shared vision. So, based on our literature review, we gave it a short definition for shared vision, which is when all actors involved in the Reef 2050 plan share complementary visions for the reef. Our assessment found that while the Reef 2050 plan is a big step toward creating a common and cohesive view of system governance for the reef, especially at the state and national level, delivery is not so great, especially at the lower planning scales like local and regional. Instead of being in a strong partnership phase, there is a feeling that participation is still at the consultation and engagement level. And same goes for the development of the traditional owner implementation plan. Visually, still using the happy buckets thing, our assessment of the attribute shared vision looks like this. So our goal is what we are aiming for. So actors sharing complementary visions for the reef. And the bucket indicates a maturing and improving trend for this attribute. So we did this for all the attributes, 20 of them, and this is how they all look like. And there's also a combined final measure in relation to the whole governance system. So if the goal is for the governance system to achieve intended outcomes across the system, our first assessment was showed emergent and toward maturing trend toward this goal. Okay, without going again into too much detail, I just wanted to report here 2 examples of one of the healthiest attributes that we found, which is the adaptive marine systems in the coherence cluster, and one of the ones that need most improvement, which is the system subsidiarity one. So, the governance system of the Reef 2050 plan has some strengths and challenges. So among the strengths, there are policy mechanisms in place to set shared vision, for example, integration of diverse knowledge, commitment to traditional owner engagement. And among the challenges, there are power sharing issues between governments and traditional owners, distrust between sectors sometimes, for example, the fishing and agricultural sectors and the government, and decline of long-term institutions for catchment scale actions such as the NRM bodies. In conclusion, then, with our framework, we propose a mechanism to benchmark and monitor the health of the Reef 2050 governance system. This mechanism should be replicable in time, and further collaboration with traditional owner will improve it for its application to sea country level. Our recommendation is to complete a benchmark round every 2 years, with the next one to be run by 2021 to interface with the next Outlook reporting.